Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome everybody. I always have to start out that way, Drew. I started doing that a few years ago and just it's become my trademark introduction. So I hope everybody's having an awesome Thursday. One more day left until TGIF. And I've got my good friend, Drew Slussel here with Wasabi. How you doing today, Drew?
I'm doing fantastic, Dan. Thanks for having me on today.
I appreciate you being here. It's very exciting because we're talking about a topic that we all either are on top of the game or more than likely not sure quite what to do, right? It's the one of those topics that I think we all feel that the vendors might have our back when it comes to SaaS data that's out there, and not always the case. So that's why we're here today to talk about 5 reasons why Microsoft 365 backup is critical and how Wasabi can help. So let's kick it off. So this topic, like I said, is one of those interesting topics that we all feel as if, hey, if we're using a SaaS provider, the thought of backing up that data doesn't always come to mind, because you just feel that natively they've got our backs and we don't have to worry about it. Definitely far from the case. And actually, before I go any further, I just want to do a couple quick housekeeping things here. First and foremost, if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or the Q&A. We will definitely answer whatever questions that you have. Also, we will be giving away at the end of today's event, and you have to be present at the end, so make sure you hang tight till the end. We'll be giving away a $200 Fanatics.com gift card. So that's pretty cool. So one of you out there in Zoom land will be walking away with a cool little gift. Thanks to Wasabi, I should say. So
our pleasure.
Awesome. So yeah, let's kick things off. So why are we here talking about this today, Drew?
I've got some visual aids to help us, and I think you're going to enjoy this.
Perfect.
So let me bring this up. And first let me say thank you again for having us. A pleasure as always. And completely appreciate that your audience is looking for answers and is serving their customers. And we want to be a part of that. We want to help. So let's start off with this. Why do you need to back up Office 365? Because monsters hate data centers. Right? Every monster movie I've ever seen, just entire city blocks destroyed. Think about all the data centers, that go with it. All right. So in reality, there's another reason, and that is because data loss happens. Okay.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, and we've got all kinds of reports on our website. Come check us out later. Not now. Stay here so you can win the prize. Everybody is reporting some form of data loss for one reason or another with Microsoft 365. And what I'd like to do is just go through a few of those reasons and see if any of them resonate with you. I'm betting that a few of them might. If you can hit all 5 of these on the bingo card, you win a prize in terms of you really need to do something about this right away. All right. So, first and foremost, as you were alluding to, all right, there is what is called the shared responsibility model. And in this model, and I'll give you a little bit of time to kind of scan across here. It's a lot of information, but it essentially says this: Microsoft's responsibility is to keep the service running. All right. In my opinion, they are essentially a infrastructure as a service provider, in addition to, providing software as a service. As such, they have no responsibility whatsoever, and this is spelled out in the terms and conditions, for the integrity and the longevity of your data. Let that soak in for just a moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, of course, we all, as our customers sign up for a various service like Microsoft 365, they all read those terms and conditions, every little word, right?
Oh yeah, riveting stuff. I mean, take that on your next vacation and see, how many pages you
Right.
get through on the plane. Um, and there are some mechanisms, right? There's a recycle bin, right? So, and who doesn't love the recycle bin? One of the greatest, inventions in technology. Except for, when that recycle bin times out and you've got a policy in place that says, after, an hour, a day, a week, whatever, right? Flush the recycle bin, right? Because we're always trying to conserve storage on our laptops. I know I am. And then it's gone, right? Unless you have a backup. All right. So that is, essentially reason number one. Why is my button not working? You are solely responsible for the integrity of your data. Okay. Microsoft is only responsible for the availability of the infrastructure. All right. Let's move on. So now, the second reason. All right. This is Karen. Right. Karen is a hacker working for a global ransomware syndicate. She is paid to find vulnerabilities. And one of those vulnerabilities could be a part of somebody's operations, such that their credentials are stolen and they go ahead and wipe out all the data. And of course, maybe after they've made a copy to hold, and they extract a ransom. All right. It's, and I'm pretty blatant here. Ransomware sucks, right? There are constantly external threats lurking out there, and you have to be diligent about protecting yourself from them. I'll keep going. All right. Next up. All right.
The infamous delete button.
The delete key, right?
Yeah.
Goes along with the undo button. Delete happens. We've all been there. Usually it's at the worst possible time, right? You're getting ready to give a presentation, perhaps on a great webinar like this, and all of a sudden you can't find, the material that you've been spending weeks putting together, because somewhere along the line you hit that delete button. So delete happens, also known as PEBCAC. For anybody not familiar, PEBCAC stands for problem exists between keyboard and chair, meaning
And
that's you.
Murphy's Law, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Irish or not. Murphy's Law applies to you.
Murphy's Law is universal.
Yes.
It is universal. Another thing that, and COVID, I think, accelerated the awareness of this problem. People leave.
Right.
And when they leave, there is typically a very good outboarding or offboarding or goodbye process,
Right.
Get your badge, get your laptop, get your phone, whatever the company provided. And in many cases, right, there is a reassignment of responsibility for files and folders and so forth. Until, of course, somebody realizes that perhaps that delete button got used quite a bit, because maybe on the way out, they wanted to make a statement about,
Sure.
you don't appreciate my value. And now what do you do? What do you do? Now, I recognize that, many MSPs are, small shops, but your customer base is probably, dozens, if not hundreds, perhaps even thousands of users. And, this is a complication that can affect you, certainly, especially if they're using Office 365 or SharePoint or Teams, what have you.
Yeah. Yep.
And then last but not least, and for anybody who does recognize this, you get bonus points, an extra draw in the raffle. If you don't recognize this, this is the Rosetta Stone. All right. This is what has allowed humankind to translate hieroglyphics. Right. I love using this as an example of data retention. What I'm sure that the Egyptians weren't worried about governance and compliance, but you should be. All right. And that's the fifth point, is that more and more companies are falling under an increasing set of compliance mandates, right? Whether you're dealing with HIPAA or FINRA or CGIS. HIPAA, of course, is for medical information. FINRA is for financial information. CGIS is for criminal justice related information. If you're working with, police departments, if you're working with folks that are trying to perhaps retain surveillance video, something else Wasabi can support. You know, that data has to stick around for more than 30 days.
Right.
In some cases, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And not only does it need to stick around, but when somebody walks through the door from a regulatory agency and says, I want to see XYZ documents, right? You have a finite period of time in which to deliver that material upon demand, or else you're out of compliance. You also need the capability of quickly identifying that information and bringing it back.
Right.
So it's not just about having the backup, but having a backup that you can easily extract from using the right search criteria.
Yep.
So,
and I want to bring up a point on number 4, as far as people leaving. You and I had a conversation about this, that when you take a look at your workflow, traditionally, you part of your offboarding checklist, you have an end user that's leaving. You are going to do what's necessary for reassigning their email. Maybe it's going to be forwarded to a new user, or it's going to be forwarded to someone who's going to review that temporarily. But when we take a look at their data, often we're looking at what's on the server, what's on the physical on-premise server, but what's out in the cloud can be overlooked. And there could be massive amount of data that's in there that's critical, and it could be gone, and it could have serious implications by not having that.
yeah. So I just want to recap, if I may.
Yeah.
Right. Again, you have to take responsibility for this data. I don't think there's any amount of money. Well, probably, maybe there is, but there's probably no amount of money you could offer Microsoft to do it for you. Now they're going to tell you that they have other offerings that will help you. I'm going to debunk that just a little bit in a moment. Stay with me. Ransomware, I think people are probably exhausted from hearing that word. I think every year there's, everybody votes for the word that, they hate the most.
Right.
I think ransomware has won for the last, 3-4 years.
Yep.
But it's not going away. All right. So you gotta cowboy up, cow person up to, the reality that somebody out there is going to try to steal your data or delete your data and extract payment from you. All right. Make sure you're protected. The more protected you are, the more you can tell them to go pound sand, and
Right.
you don't have to deal with it. Right. A great backup, a secure, immutable backup. We talked about this in the last webinar, right? Is going to protect you to the nth degree.
Absolutely. And it's not a matter of if, it's when, right?
Yes. Yeah. Kind of like riding a motorcycle, which I do that too, but
Sure. Yeah.
been lucky so far. Not so much on my mountain bike. I fall a lot on my mountain bike. Delete happens, right? I would say, as you're looking for solutions, and I'll give a quick shout out in a little bit to some options, right? You as an MSP ideally want to have something that is has some self-service capabilities, because this happens more often than you think, like on a daily basis. And the larger the organization, right, the more tickets that would potentially come your way. All right. So having something where people can go in and say, oh yeah, there's the proxy for the file that I just lost. Why don't you bring that back for me? Whoop, off it goes to the cloud, to your on-prem storage backup, whoop, brings it back. Everybody's happy, right? Um, we hit number 4, of course, right? Having a good offboarding process and recognizing that while it's probably a very unfortunate to lose, a valued employee, probably a valued employee, it's just as damaging to lose all of the value that that person has created in the context of the data,
Right.
right? Um, I hate to think of myself as just being a data generator, but I guess in some ways I am.
We are. I mean, we all are. I mean, you think about it. We're generating, mountains of content that let's face it, sometimes you're on a roll. Sometimes you're developing content that you look back on and say, I was on my game, right? And then if you have to recreate it, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I'd be bummed if I lost this presentation because I think I'm going to need to use it a few dozen more times.
Right.
And then retention. I guess this could fall into the area of archive in some ways, but it usually goes hand in hand with your backup process, because think of it as long-term backup. And the reason I bring that up, and this is important to what we're about to jump into, is that you know um, just because you put something in an archive, or just because the customer tells you that they're never, ever, ever going to touch it again, okay? The fact of the matter is, somewhere, somehow, it is going to have to come back to life. It is
Right.
going to have to come back to the fore. And when it does, if you've used the right storage, particularly cloud storage, you're going to be very happy with the result. If you've used the wrong storage, and I'll tell you what that is, you're going to pay an unexpected bill so much more than if you had perhaps considered an alternative at the beginning.
Sure.
Right. We talked about this yesterday when we were prepping. So I think we've covered the 5 reasons. I've lived up to my bargain, or to my part of the bargain, to spell this out. Now I want to talk about, if that's all right, how Wasabi can help. And,
Yeah.
I think you'll find this in a pretty refreshing way. And I'll keep it up level. First of all, it's about our partners, our price, which I'm sure everyone is sensitive to, our performance, and our protection. In particular, Wasabi, as a cloud storage service provider, we have full S3 compatibility. So relatively any backup application that you use today, we can support. Some applications are supporting immutability today, some aren't. We, of course, like to highlight the ones that are, because that's of tremendous added value. But suffice it to say that, there's an entire span of application software vendors that we work with. To name a few here, right? Veeam and Rubrik, Commvault, Veritas, MSP 360, Kasten for your Kubernetes backup, ArcServe, Comet backup. Pretty much anybody out there today doing backup for Microsoft 365, we are supporting them today.
Excellent. So
Good.
that is a very, very broad part, network there. It gives you, quite an advantage, huge
Well,
advantage, right?
yeah, and look, I'm not here to tell you who to use. I'm assuming you've done your homework. You're probably aligned to somebody already. If you're not backing up Microsoft 365, feel free to ping me later. I'd be happy to give you my preference privately. But we work with a tremendous number of partners who do support backup from Microsoft 365. The secret sauce where you can benefit is right here. And that is, when you leverage Wasabi as your cloud storage tier, perhaps primary, perhaps secondary, there's certain advantages. And we're talking about price in this context. First of all, your per terabyte storage cost is going to be significantly less, right? Typically around an 80% savings, because not only is that base price a key differentiator for us, but we don't charge for API charges. We don't charge for data retrieval charges. We don't charge for egress charges. Let me illustrate that a little bit.
Okay.
When you put data into Azure, all right, I'm going to pick on Azure. When you put data into Azure, for every 10,000 API requests, you pay, I think it's 13 cents.
Okay.
It sounds like a lot, but when you are doing a full backup in the realm of multiple terabytes and your payload size, even if your payload size is a megabyte, you're still talking about a significant number of API requests. So much so that the cost just to put the data in will eclipse what you will pay to store it for the next few months.
Amazing.
Okay. Now, you know, it's been a few years since I worked specifically in the backup space. I worked at Quantum once upon a time. But you know, you've got your, whether it's a weekly full backup, you've got your, you know, probably daily incrementals, right? That starts to add up pretty quickly, especially if you're doing weekly fulls, right? Because you're essentially taking the same data, right? The same X number of terabytes and pushing it back again. And of course, I don't think, at least most folks that I know, right, they don't have just one copy, right? They have at least two, ideally three, and one of which is in some kind of air gapped or logically air gapped media, the cloud.
Right.
Right. So this is the money shot right here. This is one thing that I really want you to take a hard look at. And if you're looking at making a transition, backup is probably the easiest application to move from one service to another. Right. Okay. There's your price. We talked about partners. We talked about price. Let's talk about performance, right? Because when it comes to backups, nobody likes to run out of time in their backup window. This is some testing we did not too long ago. We continue to do testing on a regular basis to make sure we're keeping up. But as you can see, for this particular availability zone in this particular test, we did quite well. We work with, obviously, a number of backup partners. And I can tell you that the customers who are using Wasabi as either primary or secondary cloud storage are generally very happy with the performance that we provide for their backup and meeting those backup windows. Then let's talk about protection. I know I'm on a roll here. You know, let's make sure that once you get that data in, right, it maintains its integrity. So we provide 11.9's data durability, a 4.9's availability, which is par for the course with any cloud service. And we've just implemented we've just implemented a replication capability. So if you are looking for even greater protection of your data sets, we can now, at no additional cost other than the capacity use, give you the ability to do intra-site or inter-site replication to have additional copies of that data.
Oh, wow.
Finally, everything is encrypted in transit. We provide immutability. Again, a number of backup applications support that natively, right? And, all right, strong identity and access management. A quick plug, use MFA. Always use MFA. Please use MFA.
Can we say it all together now?
You know, every conference that I've gone to for this past year, the question I always get is, well, what if somebody steals my credentials to Wasabi and goes in and deletes my account?
Right.
Well, if somebody stole your credentials, that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not using MFA, then yeah, username and password, and they've got the keys to the kingdom. If you're using MFA, not a problem, right? Contact support, they'll run you through an identity validation process, right? We get you back on your feet, but you continue to use MFA as that stopgap so that they don't keep stealing your credentials and impersonating you and doing bad things.
Right.
And then finally, immutability is also another stopgap measure. If you are using immutability for these data sets, then nobody, not Wasabi, not the root user, super user, nobody can delete those buckets. Okay. So when you have a defense in depth, and I've done webinars that are very security focused, right? When you have a defense in depth approach to protecting your data and you're using MFA and you're using immutability, right? You can sleep a little better knowing that there are stopgap measures to prevent catastrophic data loss.
Right.
Right. By the way, another quick plug. If you're not familiar with CISA, which is the government agency that provides all kinds of frameworks and guidance and advice on data security, please go check out their website and become familiar with their resources. All right, enough preaching. I'll get off the soapbox. I know I'm doing this a little bit backwards. If you don't know who Wasabi is by any chance and haven't already, Googled the website while I've been talking, it's basically a great company. I love working here. Founded by Dave Friend and Jeff Flowers. These are the two gentlemen that started Carbonite years ago.
Oh, very cool.
Right. So folks who are familiar with Carbonite will be familiar with Dave and Jeff. We are, I think, crushing it. Right. We've definitely been recognized in the industry by big analysts, by the big channel guides, CRN, of course. And it's a great place to work, right? We've got a lot of great folks working with us, and we're a fully distributed company around the world. Just a quick plug here. The other thing besides the 4 Ps, it's very simple to use, right? Very easy, very intuitive interface. And probably the more important thing is, if you do decide that Wasabi is a great part of your solution offering, we have an element called Wasabi Account Control Manager. Very easy for you to set up a master account and then create sub accounts for your customers. Okay. So this makes it incredibly easy for you to manage, the dozens or hundreds or thousands of accounts that you want to set up for your customers. And by the way, whether you are selling it as is or you want to, set your own price, this mechanism allows you to manage all those aspects of your customer accounts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we think this sets us apart significantly from any of the other offerings. Okay, so why then would you want to get involved with any kind of cloud storage whatsoever, specifically with Wasabi? We talked about this. This is a slide I think I mentioned to you yesterday, Dan, right?
Right.
Data gravity is very strong. Okay. If you are doing, a solid job in managing and protecting your customers' data, first, it's going to grow year in and year out, which means that their spend for data services is also going to grow. It's almost like creating an annuity.
Right.
Okay. And, think about the last time you changed banks. Heck, think about the last time you changed grocery stores. I don't even like to change grocery stores. And why is that? Well, you don't change banks because it's a giant pain. We have so much connected, right? All of our mortgage payment is probably automated, car payments, tuition payments, Venmo account, PayPal account, all that stuff is so tightly integrated into our banking account. The same thing occurs with data, right? It is the foundation, I believe, of a service that you can build on top of. Does that make sense, Dan?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just one of those things that, one of the things that we are talking about yesterday is, do one thing and do one thing well, right? And that's the focus of what Wasabi does when it comes to the storage. And for us to be able to choose, for us as MSPs, we need to choose a vendor that does one thing and does one thing very well. And when you find that, making a change is a big deal. And but like you talked about, just the growth of their data, it's inevitable that data is going to grow. I mean, day by day, it is going to increase. And like you said, from an annuity perspective, that can be very profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we have arrived, and I think it's time to answer some of the Q&A.
Yeah,
It looks like
got a couple questions
Jay's,
out there.
yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
Jay's got a couple questions. So Jay, in terms of linking an existing customer account, it's a little bit complicated. Um, I want to say I think we can do it. I'm not absolutely sure. I know there's some complications if they already have an existing account. We want to roll it under the Wacom umbrella. Do me a favor. You can reach out to me, or better yet, shoot a note over to support@wasabi.com. They can give you a definitive answer on how that can be managed. Um, to your other question about importing data, if Axient is S3 compatible, we certainly can help you with data migration. We have another offering that's going to be coming online very soon for cloud-to-cloud migrations that are going to be self-served. For the moment, we're taking tickets essentially and running a bespoke service, if you will, for that kind of migration. But we actually can, as long as it's S3, and in fact, in some cases, even if it's not, um, we can help you get data moved over. And to that point, right, if you're running large data sets today on Amazon, Azure, and you're looking for an escape, right, you want to stop paying exorbitant storage fees, exorbitant API and egress fees, drop us a line. We'd love to help you. We've seen, most folks realize 100% return on investment in 3 months or less when they've made a migration. And it doesn't matter what scale, right? It's all relative.
That's excellent. All right, so we got that question answered. If you have any other questions, please feel free to throw them into the Q&A or the chat as we're wrapping some things up here. And in just a couple minutes, we will pull a winner from the prize wheel. But when we take a look at Office 365 backup, I think the critical component here is, as we have discussions with our clients, there's one thing that if this is an add-on service, it might be for break fix clients, that might be an add-on, and you're going to want to have these discussions with them, help them to understand and get past some of the misnomers that natively, they've got your back, right? Whatever the SaaS provider is. But taking a look at our MSP customers and that client base, ultimately the customers expect that we do have their back, and we need to ensure that we have this type of solution in place that's part of our stack. It shouldn't be optional. We need to be looking out for our customer and making sure that we do have their back, and we've thought through all aspects of the security of their data and protection of their data, and just critical area.
Yeah, I was going to say, you reminded me. I mean, for folks that have systems in place today, right, that will interoperate with an S3 compatible cloud storage service, right? Hey, go sign up for the 30-day free trial, 1 terabyte, 30 days, no credit card required, and give it a shot, give it a spin, right? It never hurts to have more bullets in your holster. and to be, prepared for, opportunity for you in your case, but perhaps
Right.
a near disaster for somebody else. And if you need more time for a proof of concept, shoot a note over to support at Wasabi, and drop my name. Let them know you need more time, or if you need a little more capacity. We're always happy to help out folks who were taking us for a spin. Avnir is asking, will Wasabi provide a backup engine in the future? Well, back to Dan's statement earlier, we do one thing and we do it really well, and that is cloud storage as a service. We work with partners for the backup engine part of the solution, and we really like that arrangement. We really have no desire to compete with our partners. We find that when you do that, that tends to cut down on the number of people who want to work with you very quickly.
Right. Yeah.
So I think I can confidently say, for now and the future, no, there's no plans to provide a backup engine.
And can we go back to that slide that has all the backup partners on that?
Absolutely. Hang on one second. Oh, da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. And there we go.
Perfect. I mean, with over 350 partners that you integrate with, that gives you the ability to, first and foremost, that with Wasabi, you've got a quality vendor for the storage of your data, right? And
Yeah.
that's the most critical thing that you want to focus on. And then it gives you the ability to, in flexibility, to be able to leverage a variety of backup engines. And it's not really a one size fits all when it comes to that. You might need to make some changes as far as what kind of engine that you have, depending on what the needs are. But I love the fact that you're opening this up to a plethora, like an enormous amount. I mean, if there's somebody you're using that's not on the list, I would find it really hard to believe overall, just because with having 350 partners in in place, the likelihood is pretty slim.
Yeah, if you've got an application that is not on our list and you'd want to see it there, shoot us a note. Again, being a bit compatible with the S3 API makes it incredibly easy to lift and shift, redirect to another URL for that cloud storage service. And while we're at it, I mean, you notice here, right? It's not just the backup vendors that I've got, and this is in this subset list, right? You may also be working with customers that are trying to back up and store surveillance video, right?
Right.
Another area that we're seeing tremendous growth because of the need for a hot cloud storage service, right? Not a cold service. Beware of the cold services. I referred to this earlier. The cold services are a misnomer, right? The price, the introductory price looks great, but the minute you pull back, any significant amount of data from that cold service, you are going to get whacked with a massive bill, or your customers are going to get whacked with a massive bill.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of unpleasantness in trying to unravel and explain, well, did you read the terms and conditions? Oh, wait, whose job was that? Was that
Right.
my job or your job?
Yeah, that unpredictability, there's nothing worse than, there's no other worse way to impact a relationship. I mean, as we all know, it takes years to build a reputation, and it can take minutes to tear it down. And in the event that you've sideswiped a client with an enormous bill that might have additional charges that were unexpected, quickest way to sever that relationship.
Yeah. So
And if you could, for those that aren't familiar with the difference between hot and cold storage, could you give us an explanation of that?
absolutely. So cold storage, and the different vendors define it differently, but typically cold storage means that there is a significant delay in accessing your data when you want it. All right. It would almost be like I don't know what I'm trying to remember what movie this was, right? Taking the key to your lockbox and putting it in an ice cube, right? And you have to sit there and run it under hot water, right, to try to warm it up to get access to the key to unlock the safe
Right.
to get whatever you want out of it. Hot storage, it's always on, it's always available. There is no delay. Okay. And so while there are advantages, at least seemingly are advantages to using a cold storage service, um, again, the ultimate cost of that can be very unpredictable. With Wasabi, it is completely predictable and it's always hot.
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, okay, do I roll the dice? Like, do I absolutely know that I'm going to store this for 5 years, never get to touch it? No one's allowed. Nobody has the key. Or is someone going to sneak around and start grabbing files without telling me? And then I get a surprise,
Sure.
right? Predictability, right, is paramount to a good relationship, right? I think in any corporate structure, right, the dictation is I don't want any surprises. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that also applies to any customer relationship. With Wasabi, the price is fixed upon the capacity you use. Very easy to plot that line, right?
Right.
Y equals mx, b is 0 because no storage, no cost.
Right.
But 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, completely linear. And I've done a lot of work in cost calculators lately. Any other service, it's not only potentially exponential, but it looks like a 16 variable polynomial. It's like a potential roller coaster that would make anybody sick.
Yeah.
Okay, not a ride you want to go on, unless that's something you're into, and then maybe you should talk to a doctor.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think it's let me see, how do I get back to always fun working your way through
Right.
slides, but I think I actually had it here. Hold on. I know you can punch in a number and it'll jump there for you. You all wanted to see this anyway. Right. Besides the partners, which of course is paramount, um, you know, most of the time we talk about the three things, right? Price, performance, and protection, right? You provide these to your customers, they're in a happy place, you're in a happy place, everybody's in a happy place. And with that foundation secured, now you can cross sell and upsell other services, right? Now you can talk to them about perhaps, some security offerings, perhaps some identity and access management offerings, some single sign-on features or services, right? You really want to have this foundation just nailed down. Then you have a fantastic base to work off of. And that's my last plug.
So I want to throw out, there is another question, but I wanted to ask another thing too. One of the things that we talked about, it's a term that I think a lot aren't quite familiar with or understand the benefits of, is immutability. So can you give us a little bit of understanding of what it means that having your data be immutable, and why is that important to us?
Absolutely. Great question. Um, So the technical feature is called object lock. We talk about it as well in terms of immutability, and that means that it is uh, once written, it cannot be deleted, it cannot be manipulated, cannot be changed. And as part of the process of locking it, you define when the lock expires. right? So it could be that lock expires in a day, a week, a month, year, multiple years. Once you set that lock, it's as good as carved in stone. And again, going back to the reference I made earlier about compliance, if you are working with a financial services organization, they have certain legal obligations to preserve certain communications, certain documents for a fixed period of time, not only retain it for that period of time, but retain it with absolute full integrity. So that if there's ever an audit, the terms and conditions that were defined in a contract, right? Nobody has gone in and altered those for some nefarious reason, right? The same way that what ransomers do is, of course, they try to break into your system, they try to encrypt your data and then sell you the key to
Sure.
decrypt it, right? When you have immutable data, immutable storage, they can't do that. They cannot encrypt your data, alter it, and then hold you ransom. So it is a fantastic way, again, of stopgapping, or a fantastic stopgap of protecting your data from the bad guys,
Right.
bad people.
Excellent. And Abner has another question, and I'm not, we might need some clarification. How can you know what's provided? I'm trying
That's
to
a bit
reference.
vague.
Yeah. Sure. Abner, if you could clarify. Oh, hot or cold?
Okay. Well,
Thank you, Abner.
excellent question. So Wasabi is hot cloud storage all the time, every time. We don't have any tiers, and I apologize. I should have brought a slide along to illustrate this for you. But other services have, a standard tier of service. They have, standard tier, one zone, standard tier, infrequent access, on and on, like 12 different tiers of storage. And some of them are hot and some of them are cold. And they will tell you, right, that there is some artificial intelligence that they employ, that as you use a data set or an object less and less, that they can automatically tier it for you and bring it to a less expensive tier until you actually need it back and then pay, a ransom fee, in a sense, to get your data back. Azure has this, Amazon has this. We don't have it. We don't see the need for it. We only want to do one thing and do it well: hot cloud storage.
Excellent. And while we are, Taylor's going to be spinning the prize wheel and grabbing a name for us. If you could go back to the slide that has the contact information on it. So for anybody that would like to reach out to Wasabi, learn more, or start up an account, there we go. We have all the information that we need right there.
And by the way, if you do want to work with Wasabi, if you want to resell, you can resell starting with as little as 1 terabyte. There is no major commitment. There is no long, training sessions that you have to endure. I mean, literally, it's just sign on the dotted line and we can have you reselling, Wasabi cloud storage to your customers, in days.
That's awesome.
Right. So if you're hot to trot, you want to get this party started. Yeah, it's a piece of cake. You'll love it.
Very
I
cool.
love cake.
Don't we all? So we ran we spun the prize wheel, and the winner of the $200 Fanatics gift card is Jay Parisi. And Jay is with, I believe it's called Aegis Technology Solutions. So congratulations, Jay. And yeah, let's do a round of applause for Jay. We'll provide that information over to Wasabi. We'll provide your information over to Wasabi. We'll get that gift card over to you. And we'll just make sure. It looks like did a couple other questions pop in here.
No, Jay's just happy he's a Fanatic fan.
Oh yeah.
And Paul is graciously saying congrats to the winner. So
there we go.
Thanks everyone. It was always a pleasure to be here, Dan. Really appreciate the opportunity. I hope you all learned something at least one new interesting thing today. And, always appreciate the opportunity to give a plug for Wasabi and what it can do for you and your customers.
Awesome. And always, Drew, I appreciate your time, but most importantly, your knowledge, helping to educate us, making us better managed service providers for our clients. Just always appreciate you. So thank you very much. And
My pleasure.
thank you for everybody. Thank you to everybody else for being here today. We greatly appreciate your time. And we hope, like Drew said, we hope that you're able to learn something new. And we will be getting an email out to you that will have a link to the replay. Replay will be posted out there later today. You can always go to everythingmsp.com, click on the videos menu, and you can reach all the replays of our webinars. With that being said, again, Drew, thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we will talk to you guys soon. Take care. Peace out.
Adios.